Hello, welcome back, everybody. We're back to our React Native live streaming or live coding series. We're straight after the break, and now we are going to be implementing the camera and the image picker that we can select from the library, right? And for that kind of purpose, we're going to be using the image picker from Expo. So this is what I'm going to import first. Image picker from Expo. And then I'm wondering if I actually lost you. I probably did. Just going to repost it to the group. Going to post it to the group. Okay. Right, so as we spoke earlier, we now have to launch. So we have to launch the image picker or image library asynchronous picker, which takes some arguments, and the options are media types. You can allow editing. You can have some aspects, quality, base 64, and so on, so forth. So what we wanna get is the callback, or let's just see some things first. So let's just put the options together, and the options, as we can see, is the media types, and we can define it as a string, either images, videos, or all. So for this particular type, I'm going to set it to images only. We are not going to allow editing or change the quality. And nothing else. I think I'm just going to set it to media type image. And then what it returns is actually, so if we set this to, let's say the image, for example. We'll probably have to await it, but let's see what happens first. So let's just console log that image. Oh, sorry, I just put it in the wrong place, didn't I? So I have to put it right there. So we handle it when we choose to select from the library option. There you go, there is a promise, so that's good. We'll have to set this method to asynchronous and then make sure we actually catch any errors. We can do this and then otherwise we are just going to be awaiting the library handler. There you go. So now it shows us the error saying that we are missing the camera roll permission, which is exactly what we need. So we have to check the permissions API and obviously import it, because we have to get that permission from the user to allow us to actually use their camera or their camera roll, and then we can actually perform with the action. So this is the example. As you can see, we have to get the status. All right. So this is what it is. So what we get is the status. Let me actually close this one because we don't need it for now. What we are waiting for first is the status of the permissions, and we have to set it to camera roll. Then if the status is not granted, we can return I think we can actually just throw new error. Permissions denied. Otherwise, we just get it from the image picker. So let's try it again. Oops. Looks like the status. We didn't get the status. Ask async. Sorry, yes. We need to ask asynchronously, not get asynchronously. Ask asynchronously. So we have to ask for permissions. And then, based on that, do something else. Right? So we do ask for the permissions, or at least we should ask the user. There you go. So now it says that Expo would like to access the photos, and explains why it needs the access. So we can either not allow the access, and that would throw the error, or we can allow it and let the user choose the things from the camera, which is actually quite cool because that gives you so much out of the box when developing things with Expo and React Native. I mean, this is clearly Expo. So permissions and image picker is the Expo's API, where you just get it out of the box. As you can see, it's as simple as just awaiting the permission and let Expo deal with it. So they ask for permissions asynchronously. You define what kind of permission you're asking for. So you can say that this is the camera roll, and then you get the status set to that. I'm actually going to show you what happens when. Oh, I can't change it now. I think I would have to go to my settings and change the permissions for Expo. I just want to show you quickly what happens when you don't grant the permissions to Expo. So if you set it to never, I'm wondering if this is actually going to ask me. So let's run it quickly again. Go directly to the image action sheet, select from library. Permissions denied. So I think I would have to rerun the entire app to show you what would happen. But basically what it does, it just gives you a different status, and that means you can handle it accordingly. I'm just not gonna waste the time anymore. But yeah, but that's what would happen, and then you can do something based on that. So you can either display the alert or do something else. And because we already have the alert here, what we could do, we could just set it to so first of all, I would actually camera roll permissions denied. That's what I would log in the console. I would actually log it as a warning, and then I would return the alert to say permissions denied. So the user would know exactly what happened, and then the message would be, you don't, sorry, let me put it in. You don't have the access to the camera roll. You could say something like, go to your setting and change those permissions, or something like that, just so the user knows what actually happened there and why they've been asked to why this message has been displayed, right? And because we return it, it never gets to this code below. So there you go. Let me actually now, so this is what would happen. So we now have our status. If status is not granted, which means the permissions are denied, then run the alert. Otherwise, go or launch the image library asynchronously and let the user that's fine. So then you can they can either select something from the camera roll, and let's see what happens when I actually click the image. So now I console log the actual image, and this is what it is. It gives me the height, gives me the type, gives me the URI, which means that we can upload this URI or even this metadata to our backend and do something with it, or we can return it when running this function, right? Which means that we can have a callback coming from the parent component, for example, and you would have something like, I don't know, you know, on select or something, and then you could have, then you can have another kind of like handler here, which would actually, so the callback would be what you get from that select, which would be the image, and then you can use that image with something here, something like, I don't know, store set image callback, or I would probably just call it selected image. So then in our store we could have our selected image right there, right? So in the first place that would be just null, and then we could on select just set that selected image in the store and have the access to it from its parent component, and then deal with it however we want it. either to display it or, you know, to upload it, whatever you really want to do. So you can either have everything within this component, you can either handle the upload of the image to the backend within this component, or you can pass it up. It's actually up to you. For now, I'm not gonna have it here. I'm just gonna keep it in this component for now, and just console log it, so we know that whenever we select the image from the library, we actually have this kind of URI back, and this is where our image lives. Now, this is one of the functionalities that we've been working on tonight, and the second one is going to be a launch camera async or async, asynchronously. So this is going to be the second handler that we are going to do, and because it's asynchronous, that we know we have to set our handler to be asynchronous, and we have to catch the error, of course. So we console log the error. I mean, you know, you can handle those errors however you want. If you're working on a large kind of application, then you might want to have like a global way of displaying the messages, and then you would just run it there. But instead we are going to define our options again, because that's what is required. And then we are also going to await the permissions, and we're going to ask for camera. Okay. Then, based on that, if status is not granted, we want to display some sort of message. Otherwise, we will call it photo. Await. Okay. Oh, this is way too high. I mean, it's good to set all the constants up there, but because we need the options for this particular part of the block, then I'm just going to do it there. Right, so what are the options? That's what we want to check. So technically, we don't even have to specify anything if you don't want to change the quality of your photo, or you don't want to set any sort of aspects, you know, if you don't want to allow editing or anything. We can just omit it altogether. We don't really need it in that case. I'm just going to copy it over from here, the error handler. This is going to be camera permissions denied, or whatever. You just to the camera. As I said, you can handle it however you want. So that's pretty much it. We need to do on dismiss afterwards, just so we reset the visible prop in the parent component, as you remember. And going to console log the photo. The problem with the photo or the camera on simulator is that you can't really access it. So even though I allow the access to the camera, and you can see that Expo uses the camera to scan project QR codes, Expo experiences, you open may use the camera within the Expo camera API, blah, blah, blah. This is just some descriptions that you can set within your iOS files. But this is the error that we get. camera is not available on simulator. And there is nothing we can do about it. I assure you that it works on the real device. So when you run this particular code on the real device, it would actually open the camera. And it's so a shame that I can't not really show it to you. There is no way, because obviously there is no camera, right? And the simulator is not clever enough to show the camera, which is a shame. But on the real device, if you run the same kind of code on your real device, that would open up the camera and it would actually give you a similar object back. It would return you the object with URI, width and height, and so on and so forth, right? So URI could be either your local kind of your local path, or you could have a base 64 option, which means that whenever you select a photo or whenever you take a photo from your camera, that would return you, instead of URI, that would return you the base 64 string, which is massive. As you can see, it keeps generating those characters. Base 64 is just like a kind of almost binary string. This is how huge, how long it is. You can, there you go. It just highlights some basics, or just like, you know, a portion of it. So if you need it, you can also get it from there. If you, for example, have to upload the base 64 string directly to your backend services, and then the backend services would manage to save it or pass it over or convert it or do some magic to it, optimize it, whatever it happens there. I wanted to show you how to upload it to Firebase, but we are running out of time tonight, so I will have to wait with that kind of feature for the next time. But the idea would be to handle it. So I'm going to leave it like this, which means that we have our image action sheet component, which basically gives us this action sheet where we select the options and everything. What we actually could do, we could actually add one more prop, which would be a title. And this would be a string, and this would be optional as well. So then, yeah, in there. So title. So title would be this. We could actually set it to a default to select an option, it should say. And then you could overwrite it. You could say, because we know for this particular example we are just using a default one, but if you wanted to use it for like the avatar, for example, it would be an on-click. This pattern would be our avatar, and instead of having select an option title, you would say either pick your avatar or change your avatar or something related to that particular part of your app, right? Which means that it's even more reusable. And then, cleverly enough, it handles both options for us, which is cool. So we don't have to set it every single time we need this kind of image picker. So whenever you want to take a photo or select something from the device's library, then we can use this image action sheet, which it's not really an action sheet. It's actually like an alert box, but you can use whatever you want, like behind it. You can even have like a model window, or you can use the actual action sheet, or you can use whatever you want, something custom. You could just have like a custom kind of view sliding app from down below, or or whatever you fancy. So it's really up to you how you want to handle it. And in this case, it's just the alert that has two options where we can select things from our camera roll, or we can take a photo. Now, next week, I'm going to focus on Firebase and uploading the photo to Firebase. So we are going to get back to our photo app, because this is only a storybook or like a component library for our app. So we will get back to our photo app, and in there we are going to install the component library. And we will use the components to actually upload or select the photos from the camera roll, and we will have like a utility or something, or we will use Firebase directly, or maybe Redux or something. I have no idea. Maybe we'll come up with something next week. But essentially, we will use those components to handle the image uploading, and then we will have a method or API call to Firebase, where we are going to upload the image to Firebase's asset storage. And even more, so that is going to be the first step, and hopefully the second step will be to have like a collection in Firebase's database, where we can store the data about uploaded images as well. So we can upload the images or media to Firebase asset storage. That's one part. And then we can also store the information about the paths and widths and heights and everything in Firebase database. So that is going to be us next week. I'm not sure if you guys have any questions. I know the first part was kind of long, but yeah, I mean, there are always some tricky bits down the line when you are developing, especially with the tools that I normally don't use. So this is the whole point of this series, is just to make sure that we are kind of doing it as it is, as we speak, so you can learn as you watch it. And there is nothing in this world, and there is no experts. So I just want to show you that you shouldn't be afraid of trying out new things, and you shouldn't be afraid of actually getting to where you want to be. And even if there are some difficulties down the line, like for example this store, you see, I spent so much time like trying to set a variable, like trying to change that visible property to something else. And because we are using Storybook, the stories don't actually allow us to use React lifecycles, and we had to get this Storybook state library on top of it. So I'm not trying to guide you or anything. I'm just trying to persuade you to try out new things and be kind of okay with the failures as well, because that's the normal real life of coding. You always face a lot of different issues, and you always have problems. So because somebody just updates one library or another and there is a mismatch, you kind of have to debug it and find the problem. And this is what real development is all about. And I want to make sure that it doesn't really make you fear or be afraid of coding. I just want to show you that things are going wrong sometimes, or most of the times, and it's completely fine. You know, that nobody is perfect, nothing is perfect, and never will be. So it's good that we're trying out new things, that we are not afraid of making sure that we can solve the problems, right? And this was the whole idea, and still is and will be, for this live coding series. I'm particularly using this tag that I normally don't use, because on my day-to-day job I use the latest React Native. I don't use Expo, I don't use Storybook, I just do everything custom. Everything is completely different, and it's good, even for me. It's good, and it's tricky sometimes to use the technologies that I'm not familiar with on the daily basis. But the point is that we have to try, and we have to be able to debug what the problem is and how to solve it, right? So this is the whole point of me doing this series to you guys, because I think being confident is one thing, being an expert is another thing, but also like not being afraid of learning new things and trying out new things is something that developers should be aware of. And if someone says that, oh, you can't code or whatever, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because you're trying out new things, you're trying out new tools, you're trying out new technologies and stuff, and it's okay to make mistakes. We all make mistakes all the time. And if somebody says a different thing, I disagree, because we all make mistakes. And I just want to make sure that you understand that, and that you keep trying. You keep trying, because this is what will make you a good developer one day, right? Like eventually you will be like, hey, maybe I don't know how to solve this straight away, but I'm able to debug it. I'm able to find the problem and resolve it. And then the more you debug, the better you become, the more confident you might be with the problems. And this is the whole point of being a developer. You're just a problem solver. You're not really redoing the same thing all over again, unless you're using a technology that is like 20 years old and never evolves, and you always use the same sort of blocks and patterns and everything, and there is nothing else that you can learn about it. Then it's different. With JavaScript or the front end nowadays, everything changes every single minute, every single hour. There is something new library, new book, new pattern, new solution, new way of doing things. And there is no strict way of using JavaScript, so it's kind of flexible in so many ways that there are gonna be mistakes and problems and errors. And I'm not saying that you should be writing really like a spaghetti code or anything. I'm just saying that you shouldn't be afraid of trying. And I want this live coding series to be as raw as possible, so you understand that. And I don't want to be perfect here. I'm trying to stay away from being perfect, because I want to show you how I run into issues and how I solve them. I want to show you that I always face problems myself, and instead of giving up, I'm trying to solve them, right? I'm looking for a solution. And this is what this series is all about. I'm gonna be saying this all over again. But anyway, I'm just going to make a commit saying image action sheet, which is not really an action sheet, it's actually just like an alert, but I'm going to call it image action sheet component added, right? And this is going to be available in the GitHub repo that is always linked in the description down below this video. You were great tonight. You had loads of questions, loads of suggestions, which is absolutely amazing. And thank you very much for spending your time with me tonight, because I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed your comments. I really enjoyed your questions and your suggestions, because that means you're actually watching and you're trying to be involved. And that's the best news for me. That's something that I'm trying to achieve here. I'm trying to build a very interactive community so we can communicate to each other and we can actually build a lovely interaction. So whenever you have questions or whenever I'm running into issues, and because I'm doing like live coding and I have to talk to you guys at the same time and I have to answer the questions on the chat, I do make mistakes and I'm sorry. I mean, this is probably how it's going to be forever. There is nothing I can do about it. I'm probably going to be making mistakes and running into problems. But the good thing, or the thing I want to achieve, is that I want to have that interaction with you and to make sure that we are kind of talking about these things together. So it would be lovely if you can just chat to me or throw some questions at me. I'm always going to answer those questions and I will always consider the recommendations that you're giving me, because in the end of the day we can just learn from each other. And this is the whole point of building up this React Native or like front end or whatever community, that we can just learn from each other, right? This is all about it. It's all about creating a community and having that interaction with each other and sharing the knowledge. All what I'm doing here is sharing my knowledge. And sometimes I'm not really giving you like straight expertise. This is not what live coding or this series is all about. I'm going to be doing proper courses or trainings or tutorials where I'm going to be prepared for every single answer, and I'm going to be telling you exactly what you have to learn to understand the technology. But in this series, we are doing live coding together with you guys. So you can have questions or you can ask questions. I can answer them. I can do things ad hoc. I can just try new technologies, just try different solutions and have that kind of interaction with you and learn from each other, right? This is all about it. And then obviously in the end of the day, you can always check out the branch and you can even start contributing. Maybe eventually we will be doing like some sort of I don't know, like an open source kind of app. So everybody in the end, after I finish this series, everybody will be able to contribute to that code base. So we can start kind of sharing the knowledge over there as well and do like proper pull requests and things. And or even do some sort of workshops where everybody can join and we can just start discussing different opportunities. But anyway, thanks very much for watching once again. You've been great tonight. It's been absolutely a pleasure for me to do the live coding chapter this week. It's been a long 2 hours for me, but absolutely enjoyable. I haven't managed to work with the Firebase this week, but I'm gonna do it next week and probably connect it together with Firebase database. And for now, this is all from myself. I'll see you guys all next week. Thanks very much. Bye for now.